right, so today we're going to be talking about how to identify money when you're visually impaired or blind. I'm going to share with you some techniques and some tools that might help you to be a little bit more independent about handling money and feel more confident when you're handling currency and money and coinage and such. And I really want to make this kind of a discussion. I'm going to go through some techniques and some tools here, but certainly I'd like to make this a discussion. So if you've got concerns, if you have questions, or maybe you have some experiences that you like to share, or perhaps maybe you have some techniques that you do that work for you that maybe I'm not discussing, and you can share with the group, because we're all here to learn from each other. Okay. All right. So let's talk about denominations, paper money. Now, we know that when we're talking about blindness or visual impairment, and we do a lot of things based on feel. And the challenge with money and currency is some things don't feel very different. They don't feel distinct from each other. And I'm talking about paper money. So if you take a 1, you take a 5 or a 10, and you stack them one on top of the other, there's not really any difference. They'll have a lot of conformity, right? They have the same shape, they have the same dimension, and that makes it difficult for a guy like myself to tell what they are from each other. So it's a little easier when we're when we're discussing coinage, and we'll get to that a little bit later, because there is some differences there we can draw upon, but not so much with paper money. Okay, at least not in my experience. Now, what I'm going to share with you is some techniques here that might help you to keep track of your money. So I mentioned earlier how bills don't really feel different from each other. And the trick is to make bills, to fold bills in such a way that they do feel different from each other, that they have a distinctness that makes them identifiable by touch for visually impaired or blind. Okay. All right. So let's talk about the smallest bill here, which is a dollar bill. Okay. So I have a dollar bill here, and perhaps some of you can see that here. Rebecca, is that visible within the frame of the camera?
Pull it back towards you some. There you go. A little bit more. Perfect.
Okay. All right. So this is a $1 bill, and with a $1 bill, I don't fold it at all compared to my other bills. I keep it flat. And because that's the only bill that I keep flat, that already makes it distinct from the other bills that I have. Okay. And so one stay flat. It's pretty straightforward, right? And when I have this in my wallet, it is the only bill that I have that's flat. I'm going to put this aside for the moment over here to my right. And let's talk about a $5 bill. Okay, I have a $5 bill here. And again, if I were going by feel, comparing this to the 1, well, that 1 is going to have the same feel or just dimensions as the 5. So what I do with my 5s, is I take them and I fold them over. Not on the side there, I'm folding it over. So if you think about it, it helps you to understand what I'm doing. I'm folding it hamburger style, okay? I'm folding it over so that the bun is over on top of the other one, okay? But I don't just do that once. I do that again. I do it twice. So, and then I crease it on the side. It doesn't really matter what side you fold it over on, and it doesn't have to, it doesn't have to be a precise fold. And we're not doing origami here, but so long as you're able to distinguish it really is what matters. But again, I folded it over twice. And I'll do that one more time. I'm going to unfold it. Then I'm going to fold it in half once. And then twice. So, voila. That is distinct now from my 1. So compare the 1 to the 5. 1 to the 5. Very different shape, right? This is kind of more like a square compared to the flattened 1, okay? I'm going to lay the 1 aside, and I'm going to lay the 5 aside for the moment. Let's talk about a $10 bill, okay? Now, a $10 bill is obviously larger than the other ones, but the question is how do I fold this to make it distinct? So what I do with my 10s, instead of folding it in half like I did with the 5, I'm going to fold it over. Fold it over. If you wanted, some might say I'm folding it lengthwise. Okay, and the way what it kind of resembles is like a hot dog bun. Okay, but I'm going to crease it on the bottom. So now it's folded in half lengthwise. Now immediately, this is very distinct from the other bills that I have. It's very distinct, okay? So I've got a 5 here. I put that 5 right next or right on top of or above the 10. So immediately there's a difference between the two, right? I can tell the difference based on the shape, based on the dimensions, okay? I'm gonna put the 5 aside and I'm gonna put the 10 aside. Now, let's talk about a 20. Now I don't have a 20 at the moment. So we're gonna do some pretending here, okay? I have a 1, I believe this is a 1, but we're just gonna say for the sake of argument that it's a 20, okay? Because it's the same idea here. I'm gonna fold this as if I were a 20. Now, in the beginning, I'm gonna fold this just how I would a 10. I'm gonna fold it over lengthwise as I did that 10. So now it's kind of hot dog style. And then I'm going to fold it in half like I did with my 5 earlier. So it immediately has a distinct shape to it. I'm gonna go through that one more time. I'm gonna unfold it, keep it flat, and then I'm gonna fold it, okay? I fold it like I did the 10, lengthwise, so now it's long and thin, fold it in half on the bottom, and then I'm gonna fold it over like I did my 5. And you compare that to my 10. You notice how my 10 and my 20 are different in shape. And even compared to the 5, compared to the 20, there's a difference in the shape. And you notice kind of how with the 20, it's almost looks like kind of like an alligator mouth, the way it opens up there like that. The 5 doesn't do that. It's folded over twice, folded in half twice, okay? All right, so again, I'm gonna go through these very briefly here. 1s we keep flat. 5s we fold in half twice, okay? 10 we fold lengthwise or on the bottom, fold it over so that it's the full length of the bill, just fold it over. And then we take our 20 and we fold it like we do a 10 initially, and then we fold it over once, fold it in half as we did the 5, Okay. Any questions so far? Any questions so far? So what do you guys do out there that are listening? How do you handle money such as what I'm describing? Anyone? Thoughts, comments?
Might remind them how to raise their hand.
Thank you, Rebecca. Thank you. All right. So if you're on a phone, it is *9 to raise your hand. Or if you're on a computer, it's Alt-Y. That will raise your hand, and then Miss Rebecca will unmute you, and then we could talk. To talk amongst ourselves. All right. Nothing else. I'm going to move on from this for the moment, but well, if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to raise your hand. Okay.
Alice just raised her hand.
Okay. Alice.
Yeah, you gave me a little machine to run the money through, and I don't know where Bob is, but he's using it.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
I never used it, so I gave it to him.
That's a great question or great comment there, because I actually do have one of those devices here with me right now.
Yeah.
It just so happens that I have one.
I know he uses it all the time. So.
Now, the question is, well, how if you're visually impaired and you're not able to visibly see the denomination to fold it, how then would you know what it is in the first place to fold it at, and be confident that you think it is what what it's supposed to be? So what I have here is it's called an iBill money reader. iBill money reader. And I get it right here. Is that it within the frame of the camera, Rebecca?
Yes, and you also have 2 hands raised.
Okay. All right. I'll put that aside for the moment. Let's take a couple of more questions here.
Bob, go ahead.
Thank you. Yeah, I am enjoying this iBill. I used to just get whoever handed me the money. I mean, it always came from somewhere, so I would just get whoever handed me the money to tell me what it was, and then I could put it where I wanted it or fold it in different ways. I had my own system for that, and I used to sometimes use Buckscan on open book to identify money, but
okay, sure.
that doesn't go out on the road.
Yeah, I'm sure.
But this iBill makes it real convenient.
Fantastic. That's something that last week Deanie and Jacqueline spoke about, that if you're a member of a Talking Book program, they can actually sign you up for an iBill money reader, and it can be mailed to your home. It's courtesy of a program through the National Bureau of Engraving and Currency, I believe. And yeah, it's fantastic. I recommend them. I always encourage my students to get one, because again, it addresses that question of how do you know what it is before you fold it, right? It's very important to know that. Did I have another hand raised, Rebecca?
Yes. Go ahead, Wendy.
Hi, Wendy. Again, it's
not muted.
It's Alt Y to raise your hand, or Alt A to unmute yourself, right, Rebecca? And it's also Alt. Again, can you hear me, Wendy? I believe it's *6 on the phone to unmute yourself. Hello? All right. Well,
Hello?
hey, there you
Hello?
are. All right. Hey,
Oh,
Wendy.
okay.
You got me?
Hey, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I have a wallet with all the different compartments, so I'm trying to familiarize myself. But then I just finally figured out, okay, the less money I carry, the better off I am.
Mm-hmm.
I usually do a lot of 5s or 10s, hardly ever big bills, because I don't want it too much change coming back. But I do mark my compartments like 5s. I put like a nickel in there, and if I have a 20, I use like the quarter because I can identify the coins
Yes.
better. And I
Okay.
just kind of just do things like that. Or if I'm going walking, I just pin my money in my pocket. I know this is $5 bill, so
Mm-hmm.
if I go to the store or anything, I know I'm not going to spend more than that. So I just don't like, because I get uneasy when people are counting my money back. And I'm asking, you got to tell me, count my money back to me. Just don't tell me what my change is, because I just want to know what it is you're putting in my hand.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you say I'm getting back $4, just count it out to me or something. I just want to make sure you're giving me the right amount of money. So
Sure. And that's just
keep that
that's good. There's nothing wrong with being, expressive and telling that person to count things out to you. That's what I do when I'm at the register. If I'm getting cash back, generally, it's not uncommon for me to get like $20 back in change, and and I'll get a 10 and a 5 and the remainder in 1s. And generally, they'll put the 10 on the bottom, and then they'll put the 5 above that, and then the 1s are stacked on top, and then I can count off from there. That's one way you could do it. But,
okay. So usually, if I ask them to just put the larger bills on the bottom, because if I'm by myself, then there's nobody to proof. I want to say proofread my money, but make sure I'm getting the right amount of money back.
Certainly, yeah. Well, and what I hope to do today is to give you a few ways to do this, to identify, to organize, so you have a few options to choose from. But there certainly are options where, I know there's for some people there's a hesitancy to handle money or to have confidence when they are handling money when you're visually impaired or blind. Sometimes you imagine, well, what if somebody doesn't give me back the appropriate amount, or what if I can't trust this particular person to give me back what I think I should have. Those are all big questions, to be sure. Now, I'm going to take a moment here and I'm going to talk about the iBill money reader, okay? I think this kind of dovetails well on what we were discussing earlier with the bills. I don't know, I can't see the bills to know what they are in the beginning. So I had to find some way of confirming it. And one way I do that is with this iBill money reader. So I'm going to describe this as best I can, the way this is laid out. This device is by the size of the palm of your hand. It has a slot on top of this square device. And the slot is where you would put the corner of a bill, whatever bill it might be, underneath this groove or slot on top of the iBill. So some people put it so that it's hanging out lengthways. You could try that. I will give you, just for full disclosure, sometimes at least my iBill doesn't behave itself the way it should. So I'm going to attempt to get it to identify this, but we'll see how it decides to behave. It does have a couple of buttons, and depending on how you hold it, the orientation of it. Let's see. Yeah, so right now as it's facing you guys, there's a button on the top left corner and a button on the bottom left corner, okay? The button on the top left corner, it's actually right next to, there's a little metal ring that you could attach to it to a key ring. It's next to that, and that key ring is not on the underside, only on the top, next to the button that it identifies. And if I click that button, it's going to say error. It's going to make a little beep, and it's going to go error. That's only because there's not a bill in there. So I'm going to put a bill into that groove underneath it. Okay. All right, and it's going to see. Let's see if it behaves itself. Push the button. Error. It said error. Okay. Error. Try one other side. Sometimes you have to do a different corner for it to. Error. We might have to try Bob's. Bob's might actually work better than mine. I don't know. Because sometimes that's what I have had it for a few years, so maybe that's why it's a little persnickety. Error. All right, so if it were working as it should, it would say 10. A couple of features with the iBill money reader is that it has a couple of other identification modes. I'm not as familiar with these identification modes. I only use the one that is standard, which speaks aloud the denomination. However, you could toggle it so that it has does the other identification modes. Those are there's a mode where it just beeps with a number of denominations. So I think if it's like a one beep, it's a $1 bill. And if it beeps twice quickly, it's like maybe a 5 or a 10. And Bob, if you're listening and you're familiar with those features more than I am, you're certainly welcome to raise your hand and share that with us. There's also a mode for vibration where it will vibrate certain ways to represent the denominations. So those are some options. And the way you toggle it is there's a button on the, as it's facing me right now, it's on the bottom left corner. I'm going to push that in, and then I'm going to tap the button on top here. So that's not my cell phone ringing. That is the iBill, and it's on the vibration mode right now. Okay. Now, if I push that button again down the bottom left corner, now it's on the beep identification mode. For some reason, it reminds me of like an old Atari game. That's just me, though, because I'm weird. All right, but eventually, if you keep holding down that bottom left button, push it down and click the button on top, you actually can adjust the volume. Hear the pitch rising. Come on. There it goes. All right. So that is a little bit about the iBill. Mine is a bit persnickety, so it's not hasn't worked quite well. But this is several years old at this point, at least three plus years. And I wonder if Bob, if yours is a little bit better shape than the one I'm demoing with. By the way, this takes one AAA battery. Over here on this, you pop open the back of it. There's a little battery compartment, and it takes one AAA battery. And I wonder if mine doesn't need a new battery. All right. So that's one way we could try. We could use a way to determine what we have before we fold it. I'll tell you what, really, honestly, the one that I use is Seeing AI.
Kevin,
No, yes.
before you move on, Bob did raise his hand.
Okay, Bob?
Yeah, can you hear me?
I can.
Uh, I actually prefer the beep mode, although the voice is clear. If I'm in a loud environment, I can hear the tones more easily than I can the voice, saying different words. And it's one low pitched beep for a 1, 2 for a 2, 3 for a 5, one high-pitched beep for a 10, 2 for a 20, 3 for a 50, and I think it's a 4 beeps, count high, low, or something like that for a 100. I don't have much practice with hundreds. No, I don't get many of those.
Right. Yeah, no, I hear you. Thank you. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, I mean, I think at the end of the day, at least you have some options there. Some people might prefer the vibration. I could see that being particularly helpful for somebody who might have both hearing and vision problems. That could be a particular help for someone like that.
Yes, or if you're in a real loud place where you can't hear the beeps either, and you could feel it vibrate. But that vibration mode is the first to go when the battery starts getting weak.
Okay. Yeah, I'm sure. I've had this one for a few years, but I don't use it that much. I typically use my phone, which I will show here in a minute. But and again, if anybody's interested in one of these, we can help you at Lighthouse to fill out the application. Miss Josie can do that on your behalf and submit that to the Bureau of Engraving, and then they will mail you one out to your home. Pretty nice program. In fact, it comes with a CD, if I'm not mistaken, that actually will give you instructions on how to use the device. Yeah. And I think also if you're a Talking Book member, if you call the Talking Book program, they will help you apply for it as well. So now I'm gonna do a little recap here from a while back when Sean and I had began doing this. We talked about some apps that help with identification. One of them in particular, probably the workhorse right now for that is Seeing AI. So just a quick review. Seeing AI is it's a camera app for the blind or visually impaired. And essentially it has different modes of identification whereby it uses the camera of the phone to identify particular items. For example, it identifies currency. Now on my phone, what I have it set up, and this might help some of you out there if you have Seeing AI, is there are Siri, they call it Siri shortcuts, and you could set it up on your in the app itself. You can go to settings, or I think it's menu settings, and then there it'll say configure Siri shortcut. And the reason why that's helpful is it allows a person to speak to Siri to enable a particular mode of identification. So for example, and I'll do this in a moment, if I were to say to my phone, recognize currency, well, what's gonna happen is that Siri is gonna A, open up Seeing AI, and B, have it set on currency by default when the app opens up, okay? And then at that point, I can just take my phone, hover it above the bill, and voila, it'll tell me what it is. So I'll do that now. Recognize currency. All right. So it's opening up Seeing AI right now.
Characters, volume, line, headings, words, speaking rate, 60%, 55. Recognizing you, pause it, recognizing you, S, dollars, button.
Recognizing US dollar. So I'm going to hover this above.
10 US dollars.
Okay, so that's 10 US dollars. And you notice that was pretty quick. It was very, very fast. It gives you instant confirmation. And this is what I do sometimes is if I'm at the store, you know, Wendy, if you're listening out there, what I do sometimes is if I'm at the store and I get cash back at the register when I'm at the grocery store, they may hand me a stack of bills specific to what I'm wanting. But that's just me. I don't want to stand there, you know, in the aisle with a Seeing AI and counting out individually each bill with my money reader app, because, you know, there are other people waiting in line. So I take the money at that point, and when I'm at home, I take that stack, and then I using Seeing AI, I identify each one, and then I fold it according to what it is. So I have another bill here. I'm going to hover the phone above it.
$5 US dollars. $5 US dollars. $5 US dollars.
Okay, and it'll keep saying that until I take the bill out from the view of the camera. So, and then we get another bill here. All right.
$1 US dollar.
$1 US. All right, so that's a pretty quick way. That's my preferred way of doing it. Okay, that's just what works for me. So Bob, he may prefer to use the
Speech off.
iBill money reader, and that works well. And I prefer to use my app. And there probably are some other options out there too. Any questions so far? Maybe about Seeing AI or about anything that I've discussed so far? Okay. Now, we're going to move on and talk briefly about Coinage, because I think Coinage is easier for some people to identify, because each coin, for the most part, has a different feel, a different texture about it that makes it distinct from the other. Now, I have a few coins here, and I've got a, let's see, I believe this is a penny. So I got a penny right here. All right. And the penny, you might wonder, well, isn't a penny and a dime very similar? And they are, because they are probably the two smallest coins around. Now, what's going to distinguish the two of them, one from the other, is if you take a dime, which I have here as well. I'm going to take my finger and I'm going to trace around the outside rim of the penny. Okay. Now the penny has a smooth rim around the outside. Okay. It's very smooth. If I do that same thing with the dime and I feel around the rim, I notice that it's not smooth. It actually has a ridge around the outside of it. It's serrated, in other words. And it's a little bit smaller. If I were to stack the dime on top of the penny is just it's a little bit bigger in the size. It's not by much. But again, the giveaway to me is the ridges on the outside of the dime. And that's how I distinguish between the two. Okay. Now, let's talk about a nickel. Okay. Now, nickel is larger than a penny and a dime. If I were to stack them on top of each other, notice some of those out there who can see, you notice how there's a size difference between all three. But again, now the nickel is, if you feel around the outside of it, there's actually a smooth rim. It's very smooth, okay? But again, it's larger than the penny. You might think, well, yeah, what if you confuse a penny with with a nickel, again, putting the penny on top of the nickel, you notice that there's a size difference between the two. So, all right. And it has a smooth rim compared to the dime. Now the next one here on our list is the quarter. Okay? Now the quarter is larger than a penny, dime, or nickel, okay? But also, it has on the outside of it a serrated edge, because that might be a concern too, is thinking, well, what if I get my nickels and my quarters mixed up? Well, with a nickel, you have a smooth rim, and with a quarter, you have a serrated edge on the outside, okay? So that's how I distinguish between the two. And and I'm sure there might be those of you thinking, well, what about a silver dollar, right? I mean, how would you identify that? I don't have one at the moment. They are kind of rare, more rare than most, but at the same time, I believe, you guys can correct me, but the silver dollar is a little bigger than the quarter, maybe? Anyway, so just a quick review here. I have a penny and a dime. Okay, a penny is a little bigger than a dime, but the dime has a serrated edge. It's rough around the edge, and the penny is smooth around the rim. Okay, that will help distinguish the two of them. And then you have a quarter and you have a nickel. Okay, and the nickel is got a smooth rim. It's larger than a penny and a dime, but the quarter, larger than all the other coins that I've talked about, has a serrated edge. In fact, what I do sometimes is I take my fingernail and I kind of go around the rim, because some of you out there listening may have some challenges with sensitivity in your fingers. Maybe there's some neuropathy challenges perhaps, or some other issues. So maybe using your fingernail could be appropriate, could be helpful with that. Okay, all right, any questions about that? Any questions, comments? What about some of you guys out there? What are your experiences with that? What works well for you? We have any raised hands, Rebecca?
No, we do not.
Okay. All right. The last thing I'm going to touch on today is what about when we were checking out at the register? There are some moving parts there we need to talk about, right? Some people find it challenging when they're there at the register and they have their items on the conveyor and they're being checked out by the cashier, and they tell you the total amount, and then you, if you're like me, you're using a card, okay? Be it a credit card or a debit card, you're using a card to check out, most of you. At least I do. Now, with the card sliders, there are different ones out there, and not all are accessible and not all are user-friendly. And in fact, most of them do require some sighted assistance, perhaps. It just depends. I will tell you that the one that I find works the best is the card sliders at Walmart. Okay, and the reason why is they have a touchpad. It's an actual bona fide keypad, similar to the layout of like a telephone. Well, I don't know if the telephones. Yes, it's similar to a telephone. So you've got 4 rows of numbers. You got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and I believe there are another row below that. It was 0 in the middle on that last row. And then typically at the bottom right of the keypad is a button that is enter. Usually it has some kind of tactile marking on it to denote that it is the confirm button after you put your card in there. Before you even do that, also you're going to be required to put in a PIN number. And the nice thing about the ones that I've seen at Walmart anyway, and you guys can chime in here, tell me what it is that you've seen, what you've observed, but the number 5 has a little bump on it, some kind of indentation or a bump that makes it tactile. Now, why is it that they have a little dot on the 5? If anybody else noticed that out there? So the reason why they have a bump on the 5 is so that you can orient yourself to the keypad. And this is not unlike some of the corded phones. Some of you guys may have some corded phones at home, some landlines at home. You may notice that there's a little tactile marking on the 5, and it's the same concept. If you can find the 5, if you can locate that on the keypad, then you can orient yourself to the rest of the numbers around it. So the 4 is to the left, 6 is to the right, 2 is above, and 8 is below, and so forth. And that allows somebody who's visually impaired or blind to enter in their PIN code, which is usually a 4-pin code for your debit or credit card. And after one has entered that, I believe you would hit confirm. Now, and that's all good and well, but what about putting our card into the actual slot? Now, you used to be that so often you'd have to take the card and you'd have to slide it along the right side of the card slider. And you had to orient the card in just a particular way so that you would slide the card and the magnetic strip would be recognized. But now more and more often, everything's going towards chip, which is really more or less what I use. And on the chip of the card, what I've noticed is actually, I don't know if some of you guys can chime in out there, but the chip portion of the credit card is, it is distinct. You actually can feel it. And I'm going to put my card here in front of the camera here for a moment. And I'm putting my thumb right there on the chip. It's kind of like a square kind of chip. It almost feels like a piece of tape attached to the card. And my thumb, I can feel that. So if I can identify that, then I know that faces up and the card's facing me, and that goes up into the card reader slot for the chip. And that's the way that you can tell tactily which is which. Now, also what I've done on my card is I have taken and put in a bump dot on my card at the kind of the bottom right corner. But of course, it's facing you. It's going to be, well, it's top left for me, bottom right for you. But if the card were facing me with a chip oriented up, then it would be at the bottom right. So that bump dot is helpful because it lets me know my card should be facing up if I'm going to use a card reader, a chip reader at a checkout, at a register. But also, if I have other cards in my wallet, if I have a lot of folks have credit cards and debit cards, and they feel very much the same, very similar, right? And I don't know about you, but I would rather use my debit card and only my credit card for certain situations. So if I'm at the grocery store, I don't want to run my credit if I have my debit card available. I don't want to put that on my credit. And so I'll use that bump dot as a way of distinguishing, because the debit card doesn't have that. So that makes it distinct from the other. Okay. Because that's really what it's all about, right? We're just finding ways of making things feel differently so we can identify them and keep them organized by touch. Okay. Now, any questions about that?
Hey, Kevin.
Yes.
I have a question kind of along these lines. Since most of you guys are iPhone users, have you messed with the Apple Wallet yet?
You think I use that for some things.
So I was texting Sean about it. The iPhone has a feature called Apple Wallet, and most banks will allow you to put your debit card information in.
Oh, okay.
And the majority of the places out there and Google has the same type of thing too for Androids. I'm not familiar with it, but most places will accept Apple Pay, and all you do is you hold your phone up to where you would put your card in, and then if you have the facial recognition, it has to do that, or it takes your thumbprint or PIN code, and then you don't have to enter in your PIN. You don't have to actually touch the card machine. And you can put multiple cards in there too. So you can go to your Apple Wallet, like if you needed to use your debit card or your credit card. And Sean says it is voiceover friendly as well.
Interesting. I think I've heard of that, but I'm not used to it. Yeah, that's awesome. So many choices. Any questions out there? All right. Well, so the last thing I'm going to talk about is when we're having to do confirmation. Sometimes when you use a debit card, let's say you're at a restaurant and they need you to sign for the check, what's a way that can help you sign for that in a way that's easy and where you can still do it without having to ask somebody else to do it for you, right? A couple of ways to do that would be to use the handy old signature writing guide. Is that in view, Rebecca?
Yes.
Yeah. All right. So the signature writing guide is a handy tool. And for those of you who don't know, it's like a stencil. It is the size of a credit card, and it has an opening cut out in the middle of it. So basically it acts as a template. And the big idea is you take this, or someone helping you takes this and lines it up over the line of a signature so that you can sign or initial your name, right? And that's a handy tool because sometimes you'll find that you're required to sign after using some kind of transaction, right? I've also noticed too that some places require that you sign with a stylus on a digital pad. And I want to say that this would work on that as well. You could put this on the screen and then sign in the block to make sure that you're signing in the appropriate place. I'm sure some of you out there have used such a thing. In the past, before what I did before I used signature guides is I would just take my credit card that I just used to make that transaction, and I would have that person helping me put the card underneath the line of the signature, and then I would just sign using that straight edge. And I thought that was a pretty easy way of doing it as well, because I already had the card handy in front of me using that straight edge being lined up, as it were. Okay? All right. Now, those are just a few things that are out of my repertoire, some techniques and some tools. Not one way works for any one person in particular, but hopefully I have put some more tools in your toolbox to help you be a little bit more confident about handling money. It's like Rebecca was talking about, though, with Apple Pay or Apple Wallet. so much of the transactions that are happening today are happening more electronically, aren't they? So where a lot of folks are finding themselves handling cash less and less, and handling more things via card or via digitally, right? And also, one thing keep in mind is, and a thought just occurred to me, that some of you out there listening may also prefer to pay for things with checks. And there are certain banks, you may actually call your bank and ask, but there are banks now that have checks that they produce that have raised lines on the check, so that you can know where it is that you're writing, what area on the check, and that's true of the date, to whom it's addressed, the amount, the memo, and so forth. The lines are actually raised on those checks, so that you can tactily tell where the line is at and be confident that you're writing in the right spot. So those of you listening, just a quick tip for you, that you might reach out to your bank and see if they have those available. There also are templates for checks as well. I don't have one at the moment handy, but it's a very similar idea to that that signature guide I showed you a moment or two ago. And it's a stencil or a template that you place over a check, and the lines or the blocks are cut out to line up with the check, so that you can be confident that you're writing in the right spot. Each area is designated that way, and so that's another way of going about that. But any questions or comments? Tell me about some of the things that you guys do. How do you handle currency? Do you use any of the things that I've already discussed? I know, Bob, listening out there, you use the iBill and so forth. I know Sean. Is Sean, you with me?
Bob, anyways.
Oh, hey, Bob.
Hey, I will often go to the bank to get some cash and I'll have someone have the teller write the check for me, and then I sign it, because I don't do handwriting other than my signature. But I've got some money out, and we seem to have plenty of time, so I'm ready to demonstrate this iBill, if that's a good idea.
Oh yeah, go right ahead. Yeah, sure. Yeah, most certainly.
See, I'll set this for voice. Okay, and it said error because
yours says what mine says.
And you can change modes by holding one button and pushing the other one times to get to where you want. It doesn't matter which button you hold and which one you push. And now I've got a 1 in there.
Oh wow! Look at Bob's works.
Yeah, you might have to stick a piece of cloth or a napkin or something under there and kind of wipe yours out.
That's a good point. That's a good point. Yeah,
because they get dust in them. And here's a 20. And now I'll switch it to tone. And that's the error sound if you're on tones. And the 1 should give me the single low beep.
Oh, okay. Nice.
And this 20 should give me 2 quick high beeps. There that is. Yeah. I don't know if that came across. It's pretty.
It did. I heard that. Mm-hmm. Awesome.
And I don't have a strong enough battery right now to run the vibration mode.
No, that's fine. No, that's great. Great demo right there. Certainly. Yours is behaving much better than mine. Maybe I'll take a cloth to it and try to get in underneath that groove to get the dust out. So
Yeah, that's probably all it is.
great. Thanks, Bob.
You bet.
Anybody else?
Alice has a hand up.
All right, Alice.
Yeah, I'm trying to get my CAI working, and it tells me it's a product, but it's not telling me the name. I couldn't get it to tell me money either. So what am I doing wrong with this?
Do you have it open right now?
I can open it right away, yeah.
Is it on your iPad or on your mobile device?
It's on my mobile device,
Okay.
on my iPhone.
All right.
And I was trying to do the money like you did, and I couldn't get it to do that. It took a picture. Bob had his name up there on the screen, and it took a picture of that, but it didn't tell me anything.
Well, with CAI, to do what I did, you have to go in, first get the app open and go into menu, which is located at the kind of towards the top of the screen, top left corner of the screen in the app. And then when you open up menu, a new screen will appear and you want to go to settings.
Yeah, I'm in settings.
Okay, you're in settings. Good. All right.
And it's accessibility or in Siri.
Siri. Mm-hmm.
Okay, I was in Siri. And I've got the CAI in there.
Now it should say like Siri voice command or just configure Siri voice command.
Okay, I'll look for that. I didn't do voice command.
Yeah, it should be Siri. I mean that's definitely going to be where you want to be at.
Is voice feedback?
Nah. What else do you see there?
Okay, Siri voice.
Mm-hmm.
And voice feedback.
It should say configure Siri voice command.
Okay.
And then it'll show you like short text, document, product, currency, and then you have to manually select each one to enable them. And then once that's enabled, you can bypass a lot of how you probably already do it just by speaking to Siri.
Well, it has a learning app in it, but it won't open. See and search. Show search.
Let's try this, Alice. Why don't you close the app out and then restart it?
Okay. I have no idea how to do that.
That's okay. I'll tell you what we'll do is how about I can contact you and you and I individually, we can work on this over the phone. How about that?
That'll be a good idea. Thank you.
Okay, you bet. You bet. I feel like there's probably a couple of buttons there we could click, and I think you would be in good shape. I would just have to go through that with you, with my phone open too. One of the things I was going to mention is ATM machines. Also, many of them at bank locations are accessible. They actually will speak to you. Granted, you have to plug in a headphone set into the ATM machine, and there is some kind of a speech output that's enabled when you plug in the headset. And there are probably different models of those, and they vary between the two. But I do know that there is an option for that where it will speak to you at certain bank locations. Many of them, it's more commonplace than it's been in a long time. And also there is Braille on the ATM machines as well. Usually at this point in the discussion, it always invites the question, why is there Braille on a drive-through ATM machine? Rebecca, have you ever wondered that?
Yes, remember we did this one day.
Yeah, we did. That's right. There's a photograph of that somewhere floating around.
One of our newsletters.
Yes, that's right. We went over to some location nearby. Yeah, and I wasn't I driving your car or something?
You were in the driver's seat of my car at the ATM with your cane out the window. I still have the photo because I crack up about it.
Wow. You know, guys, I don't know why, but she wouldn't let me drive the car. You know, I asked nicely, and she told me no, not nicely, and
That was nice.
yeah, no, yeah, I remember that. Yeah, but the reason why they have it on the drive-through ATM is, you know, if you're somebody visually impaired, maybe you're a backseat driver, and somebody driving you could pull up parallel to the ATM with the Braille on it. And same thing, I believe those also, you know, of course, have the little headphone jack that you can plug into, and then there's some speech output that goes along with that. I've not used many of those myself, but I do know that they are an option. There might be a learning curve there, but anyway, well, any other questions, thoughts, comments? All right. Any hands raised, Rebecca?
Nope.
Okay. Well, again, I hope you guys have found this helpful. Certainly, if you have any questions about anything that I've discussed today, you can give us a call at the Lighthouse for the Blind. Our number is 817-332-3341. My direct extension, for those of you listening, is 817-529-7804. Again, that's 817-529-7804. You can reach me directly at that number or at the main number as well. And I'd certainly be happy to discuss anything today in more detail.